I don't think AI is making thought leadership go away. I think it's making generic thought leadership go away. Find out what makes you unique and just go all in on that. You're gonna get more clients than you can handle. How am I different? Somewhere along the way, we kind of lose a sense of who we really are. I'm an evolving human being. I've got other passions and interests. Should I be able to talk about them? Hell yes, you should just talk about them. When you sell, sell.
What is the playbook on stepping into this next few years?
There's a simple formula, it's 911. I apologize in advance, I'm gonna offend you right now.
Today we're here with world-class branding expert Chris Do. Chris Do is an entrepreneur hailing from Los Angeles. His design business, Blind, has been running for over 20 years and he's sold over $80 million in projects. They've done world-class work for musicians like Justin Timberlake, Gnarls Barkley, Fortune 500s like Microsoft and Sony, and cultural icons like National Geographic and ESPN. Along the way, Chris won a daytime Emmy and built such a powerful personal brand that others started asking him, can you help me do that too? Chris quickly rose to being one of the top voices in the world on personal branding, speaking regularly on major stages such as Adobe. He's amassed 1 million followers on Instagram, nearly 600,000 on LinkedIn, and 2.7 million subscribers on YouTube. We are so lucky today to have all the way from LA, right here in Austin, Texas, the one and only man himself, Mr. Chris Do. Put your hands together.
Listen.
So Chris, let's begin. I want to touch on how the way you talk about personal branding is so different. Most personal branding experts I hear, they're kind of like, oh, come up with 5 content categories: client success stories, thought leadership, trends, and it always has a whiff of what I would call commercial intent. It's like maybe there's this heartfelt story about you lost your dog or why they're so important to you, and then it's like, oh, P.S. buy my stuff. And it's like a little bit awkward maybe, because it's like, wow, we had this personal conversation, me and my audience, but now all of a sudden you're like throwing down like an order form in front of me, figuratively or literally. So what blew me away about your personal brand is there's none of that. What led you to thinking about personal branding in this way? That it's so much about a personal conversation rather than there always having to be this undertone of, I'm here to make some money off you, my dear reader or listener.
Full confession here. So I'm a graphic designer. I'm an introvert. Being in front of people like you would scare the bejesus out of me. I've done a lot of personal work to be here, so I just want to put that out there. So the introverts in this room, it's like, dude, I can't do this. Yes, you can if you want to. I was noticing there's a gentleman, his name is Aaron Draplin, and I was sitting, I was having a weird conversation with somebody in a theater, and we were watching other designers speak, and she asked me, like, you don't know who Aaron Draplin is? I'm like, no. And she gave me this, you're so pretentious, like you don't know other celebrity designers. And then I went home that night and checked him out, and I was watching his TED Talk that he gave in Portland, and his delivery was beautiful. He's like a really large man, trucker cap, jeans, and he just gave this presentation. I said, man, this guy is so charismatic. And the way he did it and the way he built his brand isn't that he's the world's best designer. There are many people who are better designers. He's not bad, but he got there because of the way he was so transparent and authentic about how he told his story. So if I'm paraphrasing here. He steps up on stage at a TEDx and he goes, my name is Aaron James Draplin. I'm 39 years old and I'm doing everything I can to make it in the little leagues. And I was like, who does that? Who tells you how old they are? And who tells you your middle name? And he's like, it's an important day, so I washed the 501 jeans for this event. And he kept talking like this, and it's so endearing. I was like, let me dive down, or let's go down this rabbit hole and figure this thing out. And so I was just really studying him in the classic Asian way, like, let me study success first and figure out the blueprint. And in trying to share this with other people, I started to think, why have I been hiding all this time? Why aren't I as transparent to the outside world that I am with my friends, with my staff, with my team? Why don't I do that? And so I started going this journey for about 2-ish years, and then I started to figure this thing out, and here we are. That's the origin story.
So I'm hearing you say the buzzword that we've all heard so many times, you got to be authentic. Is that what you're saying, or is there a flavor of that that's your version?
Yeah, I think there's fake authenticity, which is out there. And so let me just kind of go to the
Yeah,
board.
let's do it.
It's early. Just start here. when we talk about authenticity, everybody says nobody's for being inauthentic, so the word has no meaning, right? And I started talking about this, and I came across a piece from Carl Jung, and he was talking about there's your shadow self, which is all the dark parts, the parts that carry shame and guilt about you. And for the doctors in the room, forgive me, this is the graphic designer version of this, okay? There's a shadow self, and there's this persona, and there's the ego that regulates who we show up as in the world. And the persona is who you are or who you show up to be in the world, to be accepted, to be liked, to be loved. And we've learned how to do this really well. We really have. And so this happens from really early age. Like when you say, oh, that person's ugly, or that person, and your parents say, don't stare, don't talk. And you start to change, you keep changing, and we don't put our feet on the table, we don't do all these things. So you start to learn all the rules, and we're socialized to become this other person, to be accepted. Now, I think to be a society, we have to have social norms that we abide by to show respect for each other. But then somewhere along the way, we kind of lose a sense of who we really are. And so I describe authenticity as the gap that exists between these 2 points. We will all show up some way. Like today, I didn't just show up in my sweatpants and my t-shirt. That's my authentic self in my hotel room. You know, I took a shower, I brushed my teeth. So I'm showing up a little bit, but I'm trying my best to close these gaps so that the gap between the two is as small as possible. I don't think it's possible to be 1000% authentically you. How do you know this? Is because when you're home in your apartment or in your wherever you are in the world, and you're eating Cheetos and your face is messy, that's the real you. But we're not all going to show up that way. So that's just the gap there. So that's to answer your question about authenticity.
So the objection might be, well, but I run a hedge fund, or I have investors, and if they see me as messy or disorganized, like, isn't that going to be bad for business because it's like I don't have my act together?
Yeah, that's the risk. And I can't tell you it's not going to go away. And the more you are, the more you're going to draw a line in the sand to say, I believe in these ideas, these are my values, this is my backstory. I'm not for everybody, and it's okay. We can accept that. And if you're with me, you're with me. And if you're not, that's okay. So if you're still up and coming, if your business is volatile, it's not stable enough, and you're afraid of doing this, it might mess it up a little bit. We can see, I know this is not going to be popular, but I think I used to love Tesla as a company. I don't love it as much as I used to because Elon's been saying a lot of stuff. So that's the risk. But he also brings a lot of new people to that conversation. So a lot of the investors would probably say, Elon, just make great cars and fly rockets and all that stuff. We're really happy. But the more you say, the more you're going to draw people to you and you're going to repel others. And that's the whole point.
So how do you view, I mean, there's a lot of like freedom of speech. I want to be able to say myself, be myself. How do you balance that against an equally important topic that is not talked about much, which is responsibility of speech?
That's a really great question. I'm not so good at answering that question because I think in us trying to be so responsible and thoughtful and intentional, I think we start to edit ourselves a little bit too much. I would rather have all of you who are interested in this practice a little bit more of like radical candor than to be so careful. Because I think we've skewed so far on one side, like when we're reading things on LinkedIn, on Twitter, it's like, what is your point of view? I don't even know where you are in this piece at all. Is that what you're asking about being responsible, or is it something else?
No, that's great.
Okay.
So yeah, what I'm hearing you say is, there's like, I want to be careful not to step on people's toes, and you can over-index on that, and you lose yourself in the swirl.
Yes. And I'll say this, because sometimes I do put out something on Twitter or X, and I'll say something that I was inspired in a moment, I wrote it, and I walked away from it. And then I turn around a couple hours later, there's all this negative feedback. Not in a million years through my lens did I ever read that thing the way some people are reading it. So I have to say, friend, I didn't see it like that. Let's have a conversation about it. And they're not really that happy to have a conversation. They just want to let you know how they feel. And I think that's okay. And I say this, right? I think we all have a track record. You read like amazing, impressive bios and resumes of everybody here. Is it that we have to prove ourselves every single day of our lives, or can we have some credit for the things we've done? So I was really kind of hurt because I thought this person was my friend. And I asked this question somewhere on Twitter, and then she just went on the attack. I'm like, oh, I thought we were friends. And I thought you knew me better than that, and you were just jumping in on that. So in my mind, I had to put her in a different category. It's like, we're not as close as I thought. You don't have my back like the way I thought. And so I kind of think, and it's a dumb thing that creatives say all the time, and it really bothers me. You're only as good as your last piece of work. No, you're not. Because you're saying I must prove myself for the now until I'm in the grave. That doesn't make sense to me. So if you've shown up with genuine values, taking care of people, being honest and sincere, maybe that one thing that you put out there, in the context of this, we understand. But we kind of live in this like 2-minute cycle of news, and it's like, can we get away from that a little bit?
Am I hearing you correctly to say that your view is kind of like, hey, you got to take me in the context of everything I've said in the last 1 to 5, maybe 10 years or something like that. And if someone gets up in your face, you're like, hey, relax. Like, that's not really who I am. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Sort of. I would just say, you don't have to take me at all. You can say whatever you want, because whatever you think and feel, it's not really my business. I just want to see how you look at the world, and that's okay. So if you're into like 2 minutes of history, I'm okay with that. And you don't have to take anything. You don't have to look at the 3,000 other things I've done. You can look at this, that's fine. I'll try to improve, but I don't want to do that at the cost of me losing myself.
So it sounds to me like a lot of this comes from actually work done off LinkedIn, off YouTube, but rather with yourself. What did you need to discover about yourself, or where did you need to arrive such that you could be at such peace with Jono 138, Katie Slayer, lighting you up, and they misunderstood you?
Oh, you've read that tweet then?
Maybe it was me. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, okay, so I was asked this question a little while ago, and I didn't realize what I said would hit some people. And then I've been thinking about it. So there was a gentleman, his name is Omar. And Omar asked me, hey, Chris, so I'm really interested in personal branding. What's the first thing I should do? I said, go to therapy. Learn about who you are. Because my viewpoint on personal branding is about understanding who you are, accepting who you are, and expressing your truest self. And we can't do that, I don't think, in any genuine way if we don't know who we are. Like, what story are you telling? And I see this, and I'm trying to help my friends with this. They have a lot of inner conflict. They don't know who they are. So every time they post, I can read between the lines. You're really conflicted right now. And she's like, why don't people like this? I'm like, because you're saying one thing and you're meaning something else. And she's constantly putting the inner struggle out for people to read. And it would be wonderful if she could just come to peace with that first and then express that. So it's not for everybody. And I'm not saying everybody go out and do it today. It's like, you kind of have to do the inner work.
I think that's probably what struck me the most in watching your YouTube channel, The Future, with no E at the end for anyone who wants to check it out, is that there was such a groundedness where, and it's interesting, we're in these times right now where there's incredible political divide and everybody's has to be on a team, tribalism, all the rest. If we really step back, it's like we are connected by far more things than we're separated by. If even we go right down to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and so it's like at the end of the day, that kind of like connection and solidness to yourself, I think, is what just beamed through the different pieces of content that I watched. And so it's funny because it wasn't about AI. It wasn't about what your posting schedule was or what your snappy headline was that had me pull up my credit card, no sales letter, here's 10K. It was this sense of, I'm not here to fight. I'm not here to be on either side. I'm here to be on Chris Doe's team. And I'm more or less like kind of do no harm in the process, and limit my judgments of others. And it was just like, it was like literally calming. And you're teaching like pricing strategy or something, and I'm like, I don't know what he just said, but I just feel calmer, kind of like watching it. How did you arrive there?
I've done some therapy. I've got a lot of coaching. My wife helps out with some of the shots to the face. So I'm like, oh, okay, let me figure that out. You kind of work through this. But I did want to share something with you because I've had this conversation with lots of people before. I just want you all to imagine somebody that you really admire, living or dead. Just somebody you really admire and are drawn to. There's something magnetic about them that compels you to like consume their content, to read their books or attend their webinars and seminars. And as best as I can tell, I have 3 things I've noticed. And let's compare like the person that you visualize in your mind with what I write on the board, okay?
Sure.
All right, here we go. So 3 things that I think are essential ingredients for everyone who has a really powerful aura, something magnetic about them. Number 1, I used to say it was like self-awareness, but I don't think it's self-awareness, it's self-acceptance. It's one thing to be aware, but it's another more powerful thing, acceptance, to actually accept who you are. And almost everybody that you can think of, I think, has accepted themselves. They're comfortable in their own skin. They're not out there trying to prove anything. They love themselves so much that they leave room for you to be you, which is an incredible thing. This is like a guru, a teacher, or a lover, a partner, a spouse. It doesn't matter. They love themselves so much that they leave room for you to be you. And I think that's super powerful. And then that leads us to the next one, which is self-confident. They're really self-confident. They believe they have the tools and resources to solve any problem. That is the definition of self-confidence. It's not the braggadocio, like I bought this house, I drive that car, and I have these watches. It's not about that at all. People oftentimes mistake arrogance with self-confidence. They're totally different animals. Don't get me started. Number 3, relating to this idea of being authentic, is to express true vulnerability. Because I think in order for you to be really strong, you have to be able to be comfortable with what makes you really weak, to really put it out there. This is what's ugly about me or what I've done, and I've come to accept that part. And if you don't love that part, full disclosure, that is just who I am. And I'm not going to apologize for it. It's just who I am. So those 3 components. Now I'm just going to quickly poll the room here. Did anybody think of this person in your mind who you really are drawn to that don't have these 3 attributes? I'm just curious, and if it is, which would it be? Okay, I've done this with a couple hundred people. It's almost always the same thing. Eventually we get to these 3 things. So as far as I can tell, if you want to be this person that has true inner peace and draw people to you, I think you need to have these 3 things. And then you work on these, right?
Thank you.
Okay, cool, thanks.
So what I think is remarkable is oftentimes the question of like, how do I build a personal brand is like, how can I have 1 million followers? That's a have statement. Or it's, what do I have to do? What do I have to post and what content? That's a doing statement. So we've got having statements and doing statements. And I think what you've really done is you've pointed to what are the being qualities. And we get back to be, do, have. We get back to ancient Sanskrit, Sattva Rajas Tamas, 5,200-year-old book called the Bhagavad Gita. This is not a 2007 The Secret concept. This is like predates Christianity type idea. And so there's a real connection to ancient wisdom and spirituality in the exact teaching that you're giving us here today about personal branding. Is there anything else that you'd like to share that you think is kind of a fundamental idea of how you see personal branding a little differently?
Yes.
That can help kind of bring everyone together?
Yeah. I think in the world of personal branding, it can be broken down into this. And sorry, I just like my arrows here. So there are the people who believe in personal branding as a way to get customers. It's kind of more performance marketing based. And you're going to hear a lot of people, and I'm sorry if you were a coach and you teach this, I apologize in advance, I'm going to offend you right now. So performance marketing, it's all about conversions and getting short-term cash flow. And I'm not good at that. I just came from a mastermind on Friday that everybody there's really good at that. I'm terrible at that. Cash flow, okay? And on the other side is brand building. And brand building doesn't have any short-term value, but it has long-term potential value. And the more you do this, the less you have this. And we can see that everybody who's trying to sell you something, you might buy from them. You might even feel good about the product, but I don't think you think in your mind, I owe them anything, because the transaction has been completed. They give you something, a product, an idea, whatever it is, and you give them money, transaction's over. The thing about brand building is you're giving value without expectation of outcome, without any other things attached to it. And you can't afford to do this unless you can play this game for a really long time. And there's value there, okay? So some other differences here is that this is what you do. This is who you are. This is an outward exploration. This is an inward exploration. Like, who am I? What makes me me? What are my values and beliefs, and sharing that with the world. Now, unfortunately, the people who talk about personal branding use the same language that I use, but they're really talking about this part of it, which is fine because you all need to make money. You got to pay the bills and all that stuff. I'm really talking about this part of it, which I find very few people actually do. So those are some of the foundational things. This is an inward thing. This is an outward thing. This is a manufacturing thing. This is a discovery thing. I could sit here all day and talk about the differences between the two. But this is what I believe is this will make you probably a lot of money. This will help you make a difference. Because in this world, especially in the age of AI and I guess AI created content, I guess information has become really cheap. The value of information is really low. And if you're in the information business, which I am, I'm telling you from the front lines, people who do what we do, we got a limited number of days left because information is really cheap. And the thing is, as you talked about Perry, he's the godfather of digital marketing, right? SEO. Here's the thing, is we can all teach from the same source code, if you will. Why does someone choose Perry or Tim or anybody else in this room? This is the most important part. It's because you have a point of view. We're not buying the information so much as we're looking for you to be the trusted person to lead us to whatever it is we want. And it's hard to get to this point unless you're able to tell your story and point out why you're different. Sorry, I'm like trying to remember like 1,000 ideas right now.
Hey, it's good, man.
I'm processing here. So branding doesn't need to be super complicated. Branding simply is meaningful differentiation. And if you want to make that simpler, just how are you different? That's it. How are you different? And on the surface, this would be really hard to solve. Like, how am I different? And it's a lot easier than you think because you just need to be you. Everything about you, your story, your ethnicity, the city which you live in, your experiences, your challenges, your struggle, and so on and so forth. These are all the things that make you you. So I think if you really, really believe in this idea of branding as being different, meaningfully different, is the best thing that you can do is to be more you. So it's you to the power of you. Find out what makes you unique and just go all in on that. And there's a lot more things that we can draw on here and pull apart, but that's it. It's not a complicated concept. It's not easy to do. I hope I'm saying his name right, but Greek philosopher Thales was asked this question by students, what's the most difficult thing in the world? And he says, to know thyself. To know thyself. And I think from now until you're dead, we're still searching for who we are. The joke is like they asked him, like, what is the easiest thing to do? He said, give advice.
Couple last questions before we turn to Q&A, so everyone get ready for your questions. So let's say I'm sitting here and I'm going, you know, Chris, I agree with you. I'm ready to be me. I'm ready to be transparent. I'm ready to be vulnerable. There is some amount of action that needs to happen next. Like I'm putting keys to a keyboard or a camera to my face or whatnot. How do you view the mix of commercial intent versus just sharing myself with no commercial intent? Do you have like a certain cadence or a certain way? Like some people teach you should say, P.S., buy my stuff at the end of every personal share. Or do you have some kind of like ratio of like, you know, authenticity posts to like commercial posts or something?
Yeah. So I was helping out with, who was it? A bunch of people in the real estate mortgage space. So pretty dry stuff, right? And they're like, oh, my content, nobody looks at it. I'm like, it sucks, doesn't it? When you put out something into the world and you think it's valuable, you put your heart and soul into it, and it just gets like nothing, that sucks. And the way I was able to help them figure it out, like your content's on life support. Your content, no one cares about. It's almost in the grave. And so there's a simple formula. It's 911. You're going to call 911. It's an emergency. I got to get my contact back online. My ratio roughly is 9 pieces of pure value, no selling at all. Don't mix up the waters. Don't do 90% content and value and then 10% buy my stuff. Because as soon as you do that, then we say, oh, your whole intent of giving me value was to serve this other thing. So you're robbing yourself of the goodwill that you're just have created. So don't do that. Create 9 pieces of content, pure value. And then when you sell. Don't try to like be shy about it. Don't try to like, oh, content and selling. Just say, I got a course. I got a workshop. I have a new book I want you to buy. I'm singing, performing, dancing, or whatever it is we're all doing in this room. Be there, buy a ticket. And you can do this unabashedly without reservation because you've already given the value. And you would say, okay, that's good, right? But there's this one other component that's very, very important that you do, which is you have to do a piece of content that shows you being you. So I've given you value. I'm selling you something because I got to pay the bills. But then where are you in all of this stuff? And it's a mistake that I made, which was to create content because I identify as a teacher. I want to teach people. And I was like, no one wants to hear from me. Who cares about me? And then I heard from a friend who said, yeah, his stuff is cool, but I don't know who this guy is. I don't trust him. So there's a trustability and I think more important factor, which is relatability. I don't know who you are. You haven't shared with me your point of view. Oh, you have kids? Okay, what's going on? Like, where do you live? What are your struggles? And when we see that, I think we can relate. And so the ratio, I think, is pretty good. Now, it doesn't need to be like that. It could be 7-1-1 or whatever. But don't flip the equation. Don't do 9 pieces of selling, 1 piece of value. Don't do 9 pieces of personal content. The ratio should be value-led.
So it's teaching thought leadership point of view, 9 pieces, 1 piece buy my stuff, 1 piece is here's who I am behind the scenes.
Yeah. And I think if you do that, when you say it buy my stuff, people will be thrilled. They're like, gosh, I've been wondering how to give you money. I love what you do. And then don't make them work so hard to crawl through the internet and find it. Just tell them.
So I believe my last question before we turn it over is, you touched on how the AI revolution is putting information on life support. And that could be that people with online courses can't sell online courses, but it could also be like products, like CPG products or whatnot, that use information to attract attention through marketing. You know, I think all the way back to NO Explode, which was a supplement in like the mid 2000s. And they built a list by selling an ebook. And then they launched the product into that list, which is a brilliant marketing strategy. So if leading with thought leadership is going away and we're going to get, flooded with AI avatars of fake faceless YouTube pages and all the rest, what's a person to do if they do have value to share? If they are excited to be helpful to people who have the problem that they can solve, like what is the playbook on stepping into this next few years where everything's going to get turned upside down with personal branding and marketing in the age of AI?
I don't think AI is making thought leadership go away. I think it's making generic thought leadership go away. There's a big differentiation there, right? So there are people here who know how to teach you how to do marketing or buy properties or to invest. But I could choose from a lot of different people. I'd rather choose somebody that I connect with on a human-to-human level. And so now more than ever, I think you surfacing those stories and showing up authentically as yourself, saying, yeah, I'm not for everybody. I think you're going to get more clients than you can handle without even selling anything. Your story, how you reached out to me, it's like, I wasn't even trying to sell you. It just works out.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else you wanted to share before we turn it to the audience?
No, I think I'm good.
You're good for now?
Okay,
yeah. Cool. Who's got the first question? Clarissa. Would you stand up so we can all hear you? And then Chris, if you can.
Yes, I'll try. Will you remind me if I forget?
I will, yeah. Repeat the question for the report.
Okay.
Just with everything you're saying, thank you for being here. My question is, I started off super niche. It was just Austin. I know a lot of people in here can probably relate because they all have very niche brands. But then I started to get antsy. I started to get bigger opportunities. So then I went nationwide. And then I was like, okay, I don't want to just talk about music and this. I have female empowerment and I want to talk about this. So I started having this just like turnover of followers, or people like, oh, you're not talking about this anymore. You're talking about this. And then it just became, as I evolved and changed, and I'm the most authentic of me now, I have it grown to where I want to be, and I want to spread that message, and I want to have a bigger impact. So how do you kind of differentiate? You want to have, because I have like really loyal OG followers, but then I've kind of gotten away from my niche, which was what got me to where I am. So just kind of understanding, how do you grow, or should I go back and niche down just to kind of build that momentum again? What would you advise?
Okay, great question.
And I'm going to just quickly build on that.
Could you repeat the question then?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so Clarissa or Clarissa?
Clarissa.
Clarissa, thank you, Clarissa. So Clarissa's question is essentially, hey, I built this great following around a specific topic. I mean, her handle is the Concert Queen, right?
It was, yeah.
It was.
I swapped my name with Concert Queen on the end. So,
Right.
Yeah.
And she's very here in the live music capital of the world, Austin, Texas. Very clear value proposition if you're going to follow her Instagram. As she's grown in notoriety and fame and more opportunities are coming her way, she's opened up the spigot where it's not just Austin, it's now nationwide. And she started talking about items outside of going to concerts and what's hot, into women's empowerment and whatnot. And she's getting kind of like some mixed reactions from her audience. And her page hasn't grown the way that she would like it to. Where to next is her question. And I'll add on to that like, I heard a really good point from a YouTube expert on YouTube the other day who said, if I'm a fan of Breaking Bad, I want to go to Netflix and I want to see more Breaking Bad. I don't want to see the actor who plays Walter suddenly doing stand-up comedy when I came for Breaking Bad.
Okay.
So how do we help Clarissa to...
I like your example.
Thank you.
Because I'll watch Better Call Saul. And arguably, I believe it's a better show. So it's like we do spin-offs and we do world building. We're not just creating different verticals to get into. So the question I have for you before I'm able to answer it is, how long were you making content in the niche space?
Probably for about 5 years.
Okay.
So 5 years?
Yeah,
5 years,
like
okay.
8 years actually this week at South by. But now, like I said, it's just expanded.
Okay.
I have all these varied interests now.
It's a great question, and it's a very real one that people have to deal with. I only ask you that because sometimes people do it for like 6 months. I'm like,
Long time.
okay, there's probably a focus issue more than anything else. So what happens is you start in your niche, is beautiful, you attract this hardcore audience, and then you start to realize, well, I'm an evolving human being. I've got other passions and interests. Should I be able to talk about them? Hell yes, you just talk about them. And what happens inevitably is people are like here and like, hey, come back. We miss you. Don't you want to talk about this anymore? And we're like, well, I want you to come along with me, but I'm growing, I'm expanding. But the theory should be that when you're growing, expanding, reaching a broader audience, you should actually have more people joining you. Gary Vaynerchuk talks about this. A lot of thought leaders and experts know that they're going to hit the edges of how far they can grow. Organically, they just grow, or maybe through intention, like, oh, I need to take the next step. We just do that. So within my own story, I started out doing design and typography logo reviews on my channel. I quickly realized there's 1,000 kids out there who can do that. Some are better. I don't want to stay in that space. So I started to talk about this thing that I didn't know about, which was how to run a creative business for designers. And so now I still get these comments like, I remember when they used to talk about design. That was 8 years ago. You come along with the program, friend. But then here's the really cool thing. I always think of my core audience as the creative entrepreneur, but the audience has grown much broader than that. And I'll tell you some funny things. There was a guy, I'm driving with my children, and they pull right up next to us. I'm like, we're in LA, so I'm like, you never know what's gonna happen. Is this a drive-by? What's going on? I'm like, kids, hold on. And this guy in his white truck rolls down his window. He's like, roll down your window. I'm like, did I cut you off? What happened? He goes, love your channel, bro. Love your channel. I'm like, are you a designer? He goes, no, I do tile work. I'm like, cool.
Tile work.
Tile work.
Tile work.
Tile work, like those things, right? And I was walking in Pasadena, Old Town, and I swear, I was just walking, I was talking to my friend, and this person looks at me, and he's like, Mr. Doe. I don't think there are a lot of Mr. Does, but I wasn't even sure it was me. I'm just walking towards this guy, an older guy. Are you talking to me? And we started talking. He's a hedge fund manager. I'm like, what the heck? He's like, love your content, bro. So when you're growing, you just got to make sure that you're growing in a way that feels that you're expanding on what you're doing versus changing lanes. So I think perhaps, and this is just a hunch, women empowerment is such a big lane change that now it's fracturing. So when Tim was saying, when you show up for Breaking Bad, you don't want Dancing with the Stars. It's not in the same lane. So you have to kind of figure out how to do this. Is that okay of an answer for you?
So is the solution she needs a second Instagram account?
Could be, but that's a pain in the ass to do.
It is. And then creatively, again, as a lot of people in here, you start kind of, it's like analysis by paralysis, and you don't end up.
Yeah, you're like, not again. I'm not going to go through climbing over glass. It's the way is get back to that core and build versus divide. Okay.
Thank you.
Like people will say, Chris, talk about politics. Nope, that's not what I do. Talk about what's happening in Israel. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. That's not my lane. I have an opinion about it, but I just tell my friends, I'm not going to do that.
Thank you. Justin?
Yeah, Chris, this is
And
awesome.
one quick sec. Ryan will get you next. Okay, go ahead, Justin.
You've built the future into a brand that operates beyond just you. I know a lot of people in the room have a personal brand.
Yes.
But I think there's importance to scaling a brand beyond you. And so I'd love to know some of the frameworks that you've created that are self-sustaining so that you can actually grow a brand independent of a single person.
So the question is, and make sure I got this right, Justin, tell me, is Chris has gone, is it more about the future? Is that the brand? Yeah. So Chris has gone beyond Chris Doe, and he has a brand called The Future. What frameworks, what worldviews, what beliefs, what steps or habits did Chris need to be able to go beyond just the Chris Doe show? Did I get it right, Justin?
Yeah, scaling a brand, but without you being solely responsible to scale that brand.
Scaling the brand without him being the person who's in every single video and writing every script. And okay, thanks, Justin.
That was a deceptively simple question with a super complicated answer. You want to go there? We'll go there if you want. All right, let's do it. Okay, so here's the thing. The question is always like personal brand, corporate brand, what's the difference? And there's gigantic differences, okay? Hopefully I can draw this in a way that makes sense. That's the megaphone, okay? That's the corporate brand. And if you are nowhere to be seen, what are they amplifying? So what you have is you have a lot of your people. Sorry, those are people. They're just going to make up stuff. Oh, what is your name again?
Justin.
We're just going to make up what we think Justin is thinking about, right? So they just say things, and yeah, they start to invent things. And it can work, and you can get sales. And you know what happens with really large brands as they grow? They go so far away from the founder's story that we don't even know what we stand for anymore. So it's just a bunch of corporates deciding, and lawyers, I think, deciding what we're going to say. All right, so they need to know what the text is. In the word of Justin, what has Justin said? So Justin has to create a lot of content so they're like, this, we hear, we understand, we can draw on this and we can magnify it through another channel. So when I was first starting out, I just gave the social stuff to people, and I hired a bunch of different people. It all failed. Over a year and a half of trying with 3 different types of people and companies, it all failed because they were just making up stuff. The easiest way to do this is you start creating a book, lecture, something that's long and it's meaty, that really shares your point of view. So, make a biblical reference. The apostles need some story to tell, and you have to give them something to work with, right? So as soon as you start doing this, you'll see they scrape your content and they make other digestible versions of it, and they post it on different platforms on your behalf. So what we want to do is make you in the thinking space and the POV space, not the production and all the other stuff that a lot of us get caught up in, right? So here's the beautiful thing. The more of this that you do, the easier it is for these people to say, hey, I can predict what Justin is going to talk about. I know what his take is. So now what they do is, Justin, what's your take on A, B? What is the weirdest client experience you've ever had? What is the dumbest investment you've ever made? And then you can tell them. So now they're co-creating with you. And so you're like, okay, so I just show up and they just pepper me with stuff, or they run show ideas by me, and then I can produce that content. The maximum use of your time is just to record that initial piece of content. And that's it. Just out of curiosity, because I heard some people are doing podcasts here. How many people host their own podcasts? Can you raise your hand? Quite a few. And do you record video as well? Some? Okay. So some tools. Are you doing a podcast?
Yeah.
What do you use to record? What platform?
Riverside.
Perfect answer. So if both you and the guests are doing Riverside, of course, high quality video, you can take that one piece of content and make 1,000 pieces of content from that. Is that what you currently do?
Yes.
Okay, so you have no problem there.
And Chris, for context, he's got a USA Today, Wall Street Journal best-selling book.
Yes.
So
he has all this stuff already.
Mm-hmm.
So you probably have decades worth of content to mine. Is that the challenge then, or?
Yeah, so I guess to a certain degree, then the content creator is always on the hook to at least create content, but it'd be nice to not always have to be the voice of the content.
When you say the voice, can you expand what that means?
So your concern is that you are you going to be on the hook to perpetually be there to just keep creating content, even if you don't have to produce it?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
What if you get hit by a bus?
Well, authors die, teachers die, their teachings continue on. Here's the remarkable thing of like everybody says, who's the most influential person in martial arts? And I always say Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee, for the number of films he made and the years in which he was teaching, it was very, very short. But he lives on through media, through his teachings, and it's still like he was deeply philosophical. I think he was a better philosopher, possibly, than a martial artist. But at least he brought those two worlds together. So I have to imagine with you, Justin, that you have decades of content that's just sitting there waiting to be unearthed and to be transformed into some other kind of content, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, so there's lots of things that you can do. Now this gets into the uncanny valley, some scary stuff. I'm not necessarily a proponent for this just yet, but if you recorded enough content in video, you can live forever. I'm not in love with that idea just yet, but you could, right? And I think about this, one day I will die, and I would like for my children, my two boys to be able to have a conversation with their father in a voice that sounds like me, that looks like me, that is built on my ideas. I think I've made enough content that the GPTs will be able to synthesize some version of me. And that's a beautiful thing. Now, right before getting here, one of my friends from the UK texted me and she said, Chris, you just came up in GPT. I'm like, did you ask for me? She goes, no. She just asked general questions about broad topics and my name keeps coming up. I'm like, dang, the content is working for me. So we've been previously thinking about Google as the powerhouse. The new paradigm shift is, what is AI saying about you without using your name? That's the real power play. And in fact, there was an NBC producer, and I got on a casting call, and they're like, oh, we want to potentially cast you for a show. And I'm like, oh, how did you find out? Assuming you've watched something on YouTube, you read something on Instagram. They said, we did a Google search, and we asked ChatGPT, and your name comes up. So those of you who are still kind of reluctant to get on the content game, let's get on it. And I know a lot of authors do this. They try their best to make all their content hidden because they're afraid of digital piracy, and that's a real thing. But by hiding the content, you're also preventing the robots to find you and other people who really want to work with you to find you. So, Justin, I don't feel like I've answered your question. And I endeavor to answer your question.
Well, I think it was a great start
Okay.
For it. You know, it's funny because my brand is very much about buying your time back so you don't have to work. I've done.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to keep producing the content, I need it to be in alignment with that philosophy. So I don't want to be a slave to anyone or to anything.
Right. So here's the other thing too, and I'm a little nervous about saying something like this, but like say for example, if you were to hire some person to speak the parts of what you're supposed to speak, even though it's not their ideas, they're your ideas, the people are going to fall in love with that person and not you. And it's kind of important that it be you. So there's a guy, I forget his name. I think his name is Devin, but I forget his name. But he goes by Legal Eagle on YouTube. Anybody watch
Devin.
Legal?
It's Devin.
Devin. Legal Eagle. I talked to him. We were having dinner at kind of a creator party. And he has his paralegals writing all the content. So he just does the bare minimum that he has to do, which is to be the guy on the camera, at least for now. So if you can commit to like maybe a day's worth of shooting a month, I think you would have more than what you need. Is that okay?
I think there's also something compelling about saying, what's the main thing Richard Branson does? What's the main thing Elon Musk does? What's the main thing presidents and heads of states do, right? Spokesperson, 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 spokesperson. I wouldn't fault you. You know, I know that you really want to be aligned in integrity with like, well, hey, I worked myself out of a job and now I'm just the lifestyle guy. But I think that there's a deeper calling there, Justin, right? Where you've accomplished that. And now, I'm not saying it's a moral obligation, but I feel your calling to be like, I want to help as many people as possible get what I have. This isn't about me having a 9 to 5, creating content. This is about like a deep calling. This isn't work. This is a legacy. This is a contribution. In my view, and I've read your book and, we're friends and all the rest, like I wouldn't put in the bucket of I have to go to work. I wouldn't put talking about my life's mission and purpose and contribution to free people to live their greatest lives with their families and raise their kids. I would not put that in the bucket you doing that regularly. I would not put that into the bucket of 9 to 5. I'm a slave and I'm now a hypocrite or something like that. So maybe just that reframe is helpful.
I have one more thought about this. I have often struggled with this definition of art and design. Design is commercial, it's transactional, there's a client, there are terms and conditions, we know who's in the driver's seat, and I endeavor to do a great job for my clients. But artists, what they do is they just create. If you want to buy it, you buy it. If you don't, but they have this deep fire inside of them that they don't know how else to express themselves. The ones who are business savvy, who understand what the world wants, they have commercial success. So I look at creating content not as something I have to do. It's like my art form. It just looks like pixels on a screen, but it is my art form. And it's very important to me that I get to be able to do this. My kids always ask me, Dad, what do you do after this? I'm like, there is no after this. This is all I do. I just happen to be doing the thing that I love doing the most right now. And then I think if you look at it, this is your art. Are you an artist?
Yeah, I would say I am. Although, in earlier life, I would say no way. But yeah, this is definitely my art.
Yeah, I think so too, right? No one tells you what words to use and your cadence, your tone, the subject, and when you have to release things, you just get to choose. And I think that's a really beautiful thing.
How many people here, just so we can help Justin's psyche, how many people here, and if you don't want to answer, that's fine, would call it a smash success if they were free to create as much content as they wanted on any given day of the week, on any platform, and were not required to show up to grind on content, but did it just because you felt the nudge and you want to do it? Who loves that vision? Justin, none of us are calling you a hypocrite for wanting to do that, man. Like you are the role model that many of us want to aspire to. So you're actually, by showing up and creating content whenever you feel the nudge, you're actually an inspiration, not a hypocrite.
I'm deeply passionate about this because, talent follows money. And there's no money in teaching at all. And that's why we don't have the best teachers. The brightest, smartest, most gifted people are in entertainment. They're in Wall Street. They're in banking and real estate because that's where the money is. Our system rewards that. So after you go through this arc of making your money and having what you think is enough, I think you get to do this thing that I think the world needs. We need better freaking teachers who are passionate, who are practitioners, not just theorists. They know what they're doing, and you can tell because what's really interesting in the last 5-10 years is we're seeing really accomplished, super bright people create content. It's grown up way beyond I'm in the garage in my parents' house doing my thing because they haven't done anything with their lives. But what they've done is they've realized the power of creating content.
Beautiful. Thank you. We good, Justin?
Yeah.
I promised Ryan, and then we'll go Aaron. You're on deck.
This is going to sound like a joke, but I mean this question very, very sincere. What if you're kind of boring? In that,
I feel you. Finish, please.
Okay. When I see a lot of the personal brands out there, you have a very cool look, right? And a lot of the people who have big personal brands, big following, they have a cool look about them. You described this designer, and you went to his look, and it's very unique, right? How important is it to develop and be intentional with specifically the look and the aesthetics? Obviously, you still need to be you, but amping it up a little bit, turning it up a little bit so that you're still you, but you're not boring. You're not you in like Costco jeans, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the question from Ryan is, how do we...
Not just getting wrong Costco jeans.
I feel so called out right now.
In your Costco
Yeah.
band skirt?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So Ryan's question is, what if I don't have a rock star appearance or the artist or some kind of badass physical adornments and appearance? What happens if I'm a little suburban? What if I'm a little hedge fund manager-y? What if I got more khakis than I've got tattoos? How can I be interesting? Where's that line between being a poser just to look good, just to be flashy on camera versus being authentic? Because actually, I kind of like my khakis from Costco. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah, you like to buy your food where you buy your fashion. I get it. Okay. That's what you're talking about, right? Okay.
I think Ryan's talking about that.
Yeah. Not you personally, for a friend. Yeah,
My friend, yeah.
my friend. Hypothetically speaking. Yeah. Okay. So there's this thing, it's like your niche expertise, right? Like what you're really good at. And what you do could be super boring as hell. Okay, that's fine. No one's going to watch that piece of content. But I've found there are ways that you make your boring self, which I don't think you are. I think we all have that self-dialogue, but that's not really true. So what we do is we kind of look at what are people really interested in? What has broad appeal? I saw this thing the other day. I thought it was hilarious. So there's a person who was like trying to do something, and a shoe from somebody on a swing behind them flew off the swing and hit them in the back of the head, right? And this person pauses the video and says, let's examine this. So I measured the circumference of this thing, and the rotation of the thing creates so many like feet per second. And in order for it to do that, and he was putting up physics formulas, like the most boring thing, but it's so fascinating to me. He took a dumb internet meme video of a shoe hitting the guy in the back of the head. He goes, in conclusion, this is totally fake. So I thought somebody talking about math and physics was really interesting. Neil deGrasse Tyson was speaking at a YouTube conference. He said this thing, he goes, it's really weird. One of my most viewed pieces of content was around something I didn't even really think about. I'm watching a football game. It's a championship game. And it's like sudden death. So they're going to do field goal. So they flip the coin, pick the side. One team kicks, misses. The other team kicks, goes in the air, hits the upright, and it goes in. It's a big deal. It goes in. And he goes, you know what I did? I said, well, based on the way the earth was rotating at that moment, hitting the upright had X% higher percent of going in than out. And he put it about like this, trying to teach people about physics. And he goes, you know what happened to that video? The next day it was in the local newspaper, and they said our team won because it was ordained by God because we were rotating the right way. So you can take boring information, that's the craft and the creativity that you bring to the table, boring information. You just have to make it appealing to lots of people. So the way I look at this is like, you have intense knowledge. Everybody in this room, assuming that Tim's put together killers in this room, you have a lot of medicine that's going to help a lot of people. But when medicine comes out, no one wants to eat the medicine. So you got to just wrap it in a giant gummy bear of sugar and gelatin so that people eat it. So when we're making content to be consumed, and if you want to have a higher chance of it connecting, is lean more on the entertainment part of it and less on like making people's brains hurt. So I didn't have to follow the formulas and all that stuff. But just that person talking about the physics, I'm like, oh my God, where does this end? But it was so fascinating because they're taking something really dumb and entertaining and giving it a lot more value. And I think that's awesome. Okay, now let's talk about the mom jeans or the Costco jeans, whatever it is that we're wearing, right? Okay. Now, I have this theory because a lot of people are like, well, beauty's only skin deep. It is, sort of. But here's the thing. We're all judging each other all the time. How tall you are, how wide you are, facial hair, no facial hair, whatever it is, we're doing this. And I look at clothing as a tool. So when you're gardening, you're going to wear something like probably like workwear, like Carhartt. You might wear an apron. You're just going to get in there, or you're working on your car. But if you're going to go to a boardroom meeting, or you're going to go to a concert, or you're going to go to the gym, we wear different things as tools for a job that we're going to do. So you just have to ask yourself, when I'm presenting to people, what is the tool? What is it that I'm communicating or signaling to other people about me? And those are mostly cosmetic things that can be designed. I don't think you need to do it. I don't think a lot of celebrities know how to dress themselves, but they work with amazing stylists. You ever see Brad Pitt out on his own? I don't think he knows how to dress. His stylist is doing a good job, right? So it's like you can work with people to say, I want to stand for these things. I want to signal to people, this is what I care about. And then you have help. So I'm in the process of helping a lot of straight white guys learn how to dress, not like every other straight white guy. I'm making some progress there, just a little bit.
Ryan, how are we doing in your question?
So it is important. It's something if you want to have personal brand, just practice styles. That's what I mean.
Well, you find entertaining ways to talk about boring things.
Yeah.
And then you start to be much more intentional in how you show up on camera. So there's a couple different things here. Okay, I do this thing. I said, I ask people, like, what's the difference between a hero and a villain in a comic book setting? They both face adversity or trauma. The hero grows from it. It defines their values, whereas the villain is victimized by it and it defines their values, right? So my story here is that when I was traveling in Lisbon, my luggage was stolen. Professional cab service lost my luggage. I was freaking out. I'm like, what is going to happen? I was furious because it's like 10,000 bucks of stuff gone. I don't have a toothbrush. I have nothing. I'm like, my stuff is gone. Long story. What did it force me to do? I had to go to like this premium outlet. I started buying new clothes, and then I bought this hat, which is not my normal hat because they don't like to sell the kinds of hats I like. So I walk in the store, I buy this hat, and then all of a sudden, people are now saying, did you do this to your hat? Like, no, I just bought it. So now this starts to become part of how people are able to identify it's me. My job, in my opinion, is to make it as easy as possible for people who are a little shy who want to talk to me to know that it's me so that they can come up and talk to me because I don't have the social skills to go up and talk to them. So if I show up in a certain way and be very intentional in designing the silhouette, that it's going to be a lot easier for them to recognize you. So here's the funny story. I'm at Mozart's yesterday.
Mozart's Coffee Roasters.
Mozart's Coffee, the hot place in town. Everybody knows it but me. I turn the corner because I'm thirsty. There's a line out the door. I've never seen anything like this. Like, what is going on? Are they dropping cocaine in the coffee? What is going on? Right? So I'm like, I'm not going to do this. So I walk away. I just walk away. It's just too crazy. I'm going to call my Uber, and this guy comes running over to me. He's like, hey, Chris, it's you, right? I'm like, it is me. I saw that you wanted this thing. Why don't I just buy your coffee for you? We wound up having an hour and a half long conversation. It was a really beautiful thing. And I thought, wow, this is like a side benefit of having great content where you actually impact people's lives in a positive way. I don't care to get in that line or not, but this guy who is Pakistani, who lived in Saudi Arabia, but now lives in Malaysia, but has camped out in Texas or Austin for like 2 months, sees me and we have a conversation. And it's a really beautiful thing.
All because, you've been intentional about how you present yourself.
Yeah. Because look, if I stand next to Tim, can you stand up? There's probably no way if the lights were turned off and we're just silhouetted that you could not tell the difference between the two of us. I've changed the silhouette. I put on the good skirt for you guys today. I have a regular suit. I'm not going to wear that because I think I'm going to be in a room with people who are going to wear suits. Mm. And I'm trying to be meaningfully different.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aaron, and who's next? Just so, Leslie? Question? Okay, yeah. Go ahead, Aaron.
Hi, Chris. My name's Aaron Tweed. I'm 42, and I had the shirt dry cleaned recently. I'm an executive coach for women. One of the things I always appreciate about your content is how you help people get their value through negotiation. And so one of the pillars I teach is salary negotiation, corporate America, and tech. When it comes to putting content out online, how do you put the line down between what's free and what's in the course? Because I don't want people to feel like they paid for something that they already saw.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do you draw the line between what is free content that you put out and what is content that you hold back and you keep behind some kind of paywall or some kind of coaching or experience?
I was going to give you a different answer, but I'm going to give you a better answer than the one I was originally going to give you. The original answer was, don't ask me, I don't know how to do that. I just give stuff away and I'm not making a lot of money doing it. But I have a better answer for you because I've been working on a new model, okay? So that's a very natural thing. When you produce really high quality content you're teaching people, you run into multiple problems. Number one is when you have a coaching program or you have a course or a book, they're like, well, I can't keep up with your free content. I'm not ready for this now. And the time for them to buy something from you is going to be never because you're only going to make more content. Then the next question they're going to ask you is, well, what's the difference between the free content and the paid content? That's a big problem too. And I usually tell people, nothing. Why would it be different? If you enjoy it, you just enjoy it a little bit more and you give me a little bit of money. So that becomes a huge problem. I'm tired of dealing with those objections, but I think I have a different model now that I've been exploring the last year. So I might change my answer in 2026. We'll see, okay? So you have a lot of free content, it's here. And people can watch that. But like I said, information is becoming cheaper every day. So you don't want to be in the business of selling information. I think you want to create an experience. And how can you do that? So here's the cool thing. I do talks, right? So I get paid to be a keynote speaker. I do talks. I get usually somewhere between 30 to 50K to do a talk. And the only reason why I get paid that, I think, is because I have a social following. There are way better speakers. There are people who have written way more profoundly like influential pieces of work. But in this day and age, the currency is in media and attention. They think because you have a following, therefore you put butts in seats. So I do talks and I get paid to do talks. And the talks would range between 30 minutes to say 60 minutes. That's cool. So these people help to make the talks possible, and there's one way to make money. But then I've been doing this recently. I've been doing workshops. Now the workshops are a lot more expensive per person, and I'm able to do that. So the talks create interest in how do we go deeper with you? We'll do workshops. Well, when I do the workshops, then people ask, I want your help, your personal help in doing this thing. So that would be like a high ticket, high touch consulting. And I'll tell you the story in a second. Consulting, right? So this would be like 30K to do, 30 to 50K. The workshops, depending on how many people show up, it's a couple $1,000 per person. If you sell 100, maybe that's 200K. You can do that. And then the high ticket part is you have an offer in case people want it. How do I go deeper with you? So I prototyped something with Tim and a few other people that I had to rethink for the last year. And now I have a new offer. So the new offer is it's going to be $100,000 to work with me. Now here's the weird thing. A person who attended the workshop was in my DM saying, I love everything about what you do. I just want to learn from you. What would it take for you to work with me? I said, I don't really have anything, but you know, I've been playing around with this idea. It's going to be something like this and something like this. She goes, I want to be your first customer. She already made her first payment. So now we're working together. Here's the wild thing. I'm on the airplane. I run into somebody. We're talking. And I'm telling them the crazy life that I live. They're like, I want to buy you dinner and convince you why I should be your second customer. I love this. People want to buy you dinner to give you $100,000. That's pretty cool. That's really cool, right? So you understand that? So perhaps there's a way for you to do this. The most beautiful part to this, it's like sustainable. It's like this loop. So as you do your workshops and you do your talks, you make more content from that and you go backwards. So it just keeps going round and round and round. And then you can also do, I think, like group coaching. You can have a group coaching program because people just want more time with you. They just want more time with you. This is not an overnight plan. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. This is a go pour slowly. But eventually, you can get through this. My friend Daniel Priestley shared this concept with me, and I'm just full-on stealing it. He goes something like this. There's a graph. This is time and effort. This is results. So let's break this into four parts here, something like that. He goes, when you start making content, it takes a really long time for you to see any result. That would be like year one. And it would just go like this. Maybe you have a little bump here, it's cool. And then it's just like, this part sucks. This is the valley. And it goes like all the way to this part. And we never know when that's going to happen. It goes like that. It just goes like that. He goes, the problem is most people just quit here. Or they quit here after it stops becoming fun. Right? But you don't know. And the thing is, I could not guarantee to anybody here who wants to build a great personal brand, you have to have some kind of X factor. You know, the thing when they say you have it, you have to have it. And I can't predetermine this, but I know the people who are really determined to do this and are doing it right now, I could probably help them accelerate this process to figure out if you have it or not. There's no guarantee. But the really cool thing is when you're able to build a personal brand that attracts people, doors will open that you didn't even know existed. A publisher will reach out and say, hey, we want to republish your last book. Can we do that? Or maybe somebody that you really admire, when you bump into them at a party or something, they're going to say to you, man, I really love your content. Do you guys know who Simon Squibb is? Simon Squibb? He's the guy who wrote this book, like, What's Your Dream? He's a British guy. I think he's a successful entrepreneur. I don't know him that well, but he approaches people on the street and he says, excuse me, what's your dream? And he actually helps them promote it, or he gives them money. It's a beautiful thing. He was in Dubai and he recently won the $1 million prize for doing good. Couldn't happen to a better guy. I'd seen him around, I'd seen his videos, whatever. I'm taking the escalator down. We both walk out. I see him. And he looks at me, and I'm thinking he's just a random fan. He's like, Chris, I love your content. And it takes me a while to figure out who he is. Like, my little rat brain's like, who is this guy? I think I know him. And eventually we start talking. He's like, I have a book for you. He gives me his book. That's the power of a personal brand, that you can bump into a guy who's had interviews or conversations with Richard Branson, all kinds of people know about you before you know about that person. It's an awesome thing. Is it worth it for some of you? Probably not. And if you're not sure, I would tell you don't do it, because it's a lot of work without a lot of reward until you get to here. It took years for me to be able to get to this part. Yeah.
We have time for 2 shorter questions. Okay. All right. I told Leslie she'd get the next question. She's working on that light right now. How do I even pick, you guys? This is hard. I think, yeah. Do you want to do this first, or do you want to do your question? Okay, go ahead.
So my question was, you went from typography to marketing. You pivoted, right? How did you make that decision? Was it haphazard or very intentional?
So the question is, Chris started with typography and then building a business coaching for designers and then personal brand. So you've kind of pivoted along the way. Was that intentional? Was it an accident? Was it just following your heart? Did I get the question right, Leslie? Yeah.
I wish I could tell you there was a clear blueprint. There was no blueprint. And I actually, the first videos that we made were to support a product that we were selling. And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't want to be on YouTube. I didn't know how to launch a product, but my business partner at that time did. And he said, this is what we must do. And I was just gritting my teeth, like, okay, I'll try and show up. Super tense jaw on the whole bit, and just not liking myself at all. I'm so weird that when the team that were editing the videos and I walked by and I could hear my own voice, I would tell them, I'm like, hey, if you see me coming by, turn off the thing. I cannot hear my own voice. And they kind of laughed. I'm like, no, seriously, I'll fire you if you do that. I want you to turn it off. Wear headphones. I do not want to hear my own voice. And I could not watch my own videos, my face, my voice. I just could not do it. It took years for me to get over that part, just to let you know. It's like you're not alone there, right? I just don't want to do any of that. What I found out early on is when you make content and you try and sell, you don't sell products and you don't get an audience. So the biggest breakthrough in year 1 in YouTube was when I told my former partner, I don't want to sell anything anymore. It makes me feel super gross. I just want to teach. Let's show up and let's work really hard and let's teach. Of course, that first video started to get some traction. So instead of getting 50 views a day, it was getting hundreds and then thousands of views a day, which was really a big deal for us back then, right? So it told me there was a very powerful lesson there. Give value, stop selling stuff, and you'll grow your audience. And if you just keep doing that. And so and then follow wherever the audience takes me. And I'm like, I'm really enjoying this. It was a former student of mine who asked me for some business advice. And I said, I'll make a deal with you. You can pay me my coaching fee, which I know he doesn't have any money, or you allow us to record this whole thing and then I can get some value from it myself. That video starts to take off. And then I realized, oh, this thing that I took for granted, this boring thing I know how to do, talk about business for creatives, is the thing that the audience, the community wants, that very few people, if any, were doing at all at that time in YouTube. So that was my differentiation point. And then I was able to create content that attracted an audience. Now here's the weird thing. I know you introduced me a certain way. I do not consider myself a branding expert. I do not consider myself a marketing expert. But when people started introducing me as that, I'm like, I better read some books on marketing because I'm just creating content. I'm just being a teacher. And you're all describing it this way. Literally, I'm 4 books from Seth Godin, Permission Marketing, All Marketers Are Liars. This is marketing. I'm just reading more and more books on that stuff because I want to at least earn the description that they're throwing on me. So I'm not an expert at any of that stuff. I just want to be clear.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Last question will go to Mark Riffey because he's flown so far away to be here. I love all my locals. You know that, you guys. Mark's opportunity to be here is a little less than you guys for any future events that I do. So I just want to thank you. Oh, yeah. So, does Spencer have a question? I think Mark's, no, okay. All right, Mark, go ahead.
My customers are engineers. I'm a programmer who figured out how to be a CEO. So as a fellow introvert, I'm always trying to figure out what the decoder ring is to get past the incredibly highly tuned bullshit filter of the introvert. Because I'm the guy who wants to walk on the beach by myself in the morning, not because I like to walk on the beach by myself in the morning, because I like to be by myself.
You're already more advanced than me, by the way, because I only walk on the beach. I would say in the room.
6 in the morning.
Keep on.
That's the time. Nobody walks the beach. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts on that as a fellow introvert on getting past our decoder rings for, just the wax on, wax off of just leave me alone. I want to sit in my room and program or do my engineering work or do my graphic arts work or whatever.
So the question is, as an introvert, like a heavy duty introvert, like computer engineer, want to just be me, my computer introvert, walk on the beach with no one else around me. I guess ultimately is the question, like, how did Chris ultimately come to creating so much content and having a personal brand amidst that constraint? Or is the question more like, me and my types have very high bullshit meters, and I'm afraid that anything I say might just get like chopped off at the knees because my crowd is hypercritical?
Yeah, and the theory is that graphic arts people that you started with are a lot like programmers and engineers. We just want to sit in our little room and do our thing. So therefore, communicating to them is perhaps harder. And if there's something you learn from that process.
So like, yeah, it is speaking to ultra introverts. Is there something different about that messaging?
Yeah.
That's the question. Okay, go ahead.
It's a very good question. This is the last question, right? So how much time do we have? This is a deep one.
We
I do too, by the way.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. How many introverts are in the room? Raise your hand. Okay. Wow.
I love that question.
Yes.
Maybe there'll be an introvert meetup in the networking.
Yeah, we'll just stand by
Off to the
ourselves
side.
and talk to no one. I'll be on my phone. That's what I'll be doing.
So in 7 minutes,
7
I'll
minutes.
need
I
to
can-
take us into the final.
Okay,
little bit
I'll try
here.
and land it in 7 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. The introverted question. Okay. I believe this the classification of introvert and extrovert has shades of gray. There's this thing called an ambivert, and I think when we take a test, it's binary. It's like you're this or you're like that. But maybe we're all not like that. You may be to the left of me on the introversion scale, and of course, a lot of people here are going to be to the right of me on the extroversion scale. But I believe a lot of us are in this messy middle, which is the ambiverts, right? And I'll tell you a really quick story. When I was making commercials, clients would come by and my coach would be there every once in a while. He's like, why are you in your room? The clients are here, they're walking around. I'm like, I don't want to talk to them. But what's going to happen when those creative directors that you hired leave? Where are the clients going to go? They're going to stay with you, who they've never met? And I told him, his name is Kier. Kier, I don't know what to say to them. I don't know how to start the conversation. I don't know how to get out of it. So Kier did a really great thing for me. He gathers the staff together. He goes, everybody, it's of utmost importance that Chris be seen by the clients because they're going to appreciate the owner made some effort. Your job is to introduce him and then to make up a reason why you have to pull him out because he doesn't know how to do that. Sure enough, next clients come in. They're like, Chris, the client's here. I'm like, oh God, okay. So they're like, hey, everybody, we just want to introduce you to Chris. He's owner of the company. And then I'm like, hi, everybody. Whatever. I just do my bit, right? I'm like, oh, I don't know what we're doing. And I just ask generic questions like, are we taking good care of you? They're like, yes. And if you have a problem, would you just please let me know? And I'll have the producer give you my cell phone number in case there's ever a problem. Please, I appreciate your business. And then like, Chris, we have a meeting for you. I'm like, thank you very much, everybody. I have to run. And that was it. Cool. Training wheels on how to be not a dork, okay? So they would do this over and over again, and eventually I would get comfortable enough where they're like, you have a meeting. I'm like, just cancel a meeting. I'm good right now. I just sit there and I start talking to them. So we expose ourselves to a little bit of discomfort, and the really awesome thing is we grow into that discomfort, so that becomes the new normal. I just think if we seclude ourselves for too long, then we kind of start to shrink. So I'm starting to develop some social skills. Not a lot, but some. And then the next thing he said to me was, why are you trying to be the world's best kept secret? Like, I'm not trying. He goes, fooled me. Because You're nowhere. We can't find you anywhere. You go, okay, what do I do, Kier? Go volunteer, do a talk. I'm like, oh my God, I knew you were gonna say that, and now you just said it. Now I gotta go deal with that. So I'd go on stage and I'd do my thing and bomb terribly. I get dry mouth. I'm not breathing regularly, so I'm like burping. And don't eat anything because it's gonna run right through my body because the acid in my body is just out of control, right? I remember one time about 2 years into public speaking of just torturing myself. I called my wife after a talk. It was in Seattle for like an Adobe conference. I said, honey, and she goes, what? Why are you calling me? You never call me. Is everything okay? And I said, everything's okay. It's the first time I didn't feel like I wanted to vomit. She goes, retrace all of your steps. Figure out what it is. And you know what it is? It's because I started to feel like I knew the people in the audience. That's the big difference. If I know you really well, I could talk to you for days. We go fishing together. We do whatever because we're friends. But a room full of strangers is a super scary thing for an introvert. So there are certain tricks that I've been able to develop over time so that I can get here, right? So one little weird story. I just wanted to tell you how weird I am, okay? I was at another Adobe conference. They sent me a ticket because I'd won something, and I didn't know anybody there. The person who was going to go with me decided last minute she's not going. So now what am I going to do with like 8,000 people I do not know? And I thought to myself, I'm just going to stand here. When the doors open up and they flood out of the hall and they go to wherever they're going to go, I hope somebody recognizes me because I'm just going to stand there. And when I told my wife this, like, what are you doing, babe? What kind of ego play is this? I'm not. I'm just trying to see one familiar face and hoping they'll say something. And I stood there and it was super weird. People were rushing by. And eventually one person said, yo, you're the guy? I'm like, depends. Are you upset at me? Okay, and then I started talking, right? So then I knew the tool for the introvert is to be recognizable enough so that people will walk up to you. That's just my trick. And be comfortable enough in your discomfort to stand there until someone does. So when I go on stages, I say I'm extremely socially awkward. I have no social skills. I want my content to be so good that I don't have to actually develop any. And it's working out pretty good.
That was worth 9 hours each way. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not done for today, but we are done with the Q&A. So a big round of applause. Thanks.